in its 8th year on television, the Clark County School District and KVBC TV3 present High School Varsity Quiz, featuring academic competition among Southern Nevada's finest scholars. In today's game, the Chaparral Cowboys meet the Gorman Gales. Good afternoon, I'm Bob Amblad. Welcome to Varsity Quiz, our last show of 1979, and we wish you a special Happy New Year before we get underway. Let's meet the players in today's game. First of all, the players for Chaparral.
Marilyn Mish, senior.
Don Mose, senior.
Mitch Wolf, senior.
June Wong, senior.
Thank you, players, and welcome to the game. And now let's meet the players for the Gorman Gales.
Ed Anders, senior. David Bronder, senior.
April Miller, junior. Rhonda Qualiana, senior.
And thank you, players. Welcome to the game. As we all know, Varsity Quiz is played in 5-minute quarters using 5-point quick questions covering a wide range of knowledge. Every time the teams score 35-point intervals, then they get a 10-point team question, and only on the team questions do the players confer for the answers. So that's our rules. We've met our players. Let's play Varsity Quiz. Players, in your first question. For many years of American history, new presidents were always inaugurated on March 4th.
Chaparral, Wolf. January 20th.
Incorrect. Not the answer we're looking for. Who was the first president to be inaugurated on the new date, or the present date, January 20th? Gorman, this is yours. And no answer. That was Franklin Roosevelt. For his second term, he was inaugurated January 20th, 1937. What do we call a brief piece of nonfiction which presents a personal point of view either through informal discourse?
Gorman, Qualiana.
An essay.
That's correct. An essay, informal discourse, or formal analysis and argument. There were 13 original colonies which became the United States. Which colony joined the Union as the 13th?
Gorman, Anders.
Vermont.
Not Vermont.
Chaparral, Wolf.
Rhode Island.
That was Rhode Island on May 29th of 1790. Excuse me. Geronimo was well known as the chief of an Indian tribe and lived from 1829 to 1909. What Indian tribe was he the chief of?
Gorman, Miller.
Apache.
That's correct. Tribe in Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico, the Apaches. A euphemism is a nice way of saying something.
Chaparral, Mose.
It's a word that says something that's nicer than the term that is.
No, that is not what we're looking for. Gorman, a euphemism is saying something that might offend someone. Spell euphemism.
Gorman, Qualiana.
E-U-P-H-A-S-I-M.
No, E-U-P-H-E-M-I-S-M, euphemism. In history books, we sometimes find a small letter C in front of a date, such as
Chaparral, Wong.
That means around that date.
All right, that's correct. Comes from the Latin circa, meaning approximately that date, such as C. 1500 AD means something happened around that time. Which of the planets in our solar system has rings which scientists...
Chaparral, Wolf.
Saturn.
That's Saturn. They're now studying them. An art form in which the subject matter consists of fantastic, dreamlike objects and scenes.
Chaparral, Mose.
Surrealism.
That is correct. Reached its peak in the early 20th century. What was this art form called? Surrealism. Picasso and Dali being some of the leading exponents of that. The forerunners of modern-day chemists were the alchemists, who worked prior to the 1700s.
Chaparral, Wong.
They tried turning base metals into gold.
That's correct. What process did the alchemists search for? And that was a way to change the different base metals into gold. Who was the 18th century Irish novelist and playwright who wrote The Vicar of Wakefield and She...
Chaparral, Wong.
Oliver Goldsmith.
That's correct. And She Stoops to Conquer was another of his work. Oliver Goldsmith. How long does it take our Earth to make one rotation on its imaginary axis?
Chaparral, Wolf.
1 day, about 23 hours and 56 minutes.
4.09 seconds, or 24 hours. 1 day is correct. And we have a team question now for Chaparral. The English often have different words to mean the same thing as many of our common terms. I'm going to give you 5 parts of an automobile as they are called in Britain. You tell me what these parts would be called in the United States. Number 1, an accumulator. Accumulator. Number 2, boot. Number 3, bonnet. Number 4, damper. And number 5, wing. And our conference time is up. Mitch Wolf is the team captain, will answer for the team. In the United States, what would an accumulator be?
An accelerator.
No, it'd be the battery. Number 2, the boot.
The brake.
No, it'd be the trunk. Number 3, the bonnet.
The roof.
No, it would be the hood over the motor. Number 4, the damper.
The roof.
No, the shock absorbers. And number 5, the wing.
The fender.
Ah, you've got it. And we have one part right. That's 2 points for each part, or 2 points for the team question. Back to the quick questions, both teams eligible. One of the best-selling biographies, which appeared in 1975, is called Kate. Kate is the biography of what famous person?
Gorman, Anders.
Katharine Hepburn.
That's correct, Katharine Hepburn. How would you define an acre-foot of water?
Chaparral, Wolf.
The quantity of water required to cover an acre of land to a depth of 1 foot.
That is correct, covering an acre of land 1 foot in depth, about 326,000 gallons. The Great Salt Lake in Utah is the remnant of a prehistoric lake which once covered northern Utah and some of Nevada and Idaho.
Chaparral, Wong.
Lake Bonneville.
That's correct. The name of this prehistoric lake is Lake Bonneville. And the whistle indicates the end of our first quarter of action. We'll be back after these words. And at the end of our first quarter of action, we have Chaparral leading Gorman 47-15. There are new players on our teams, and we'd like to meet them now. First, the new players on Chaparral's team.
David Locicero, senior.
Robert Burchek, sophomore.
And that takes care of our 2 new players on Chaparral's team. Let's meet our new players on Gorman's team.
Randy Ficus, junior.
John Pierce, senior.
Okay, thank you, players, and welcome to the game. And Ed Anders has moved. No, you haven't moved. You're staying right where you are, aren't you? It's looking good up on top and up on the bottom there, so let's get into our game. Second quarter, it's 47-15. In England, you might hear someone referred to as a beefeater. Whom do the English call?
Chaparral, Wong.
It's the guards for the Tower of London.
All right, that's correct. For the royal family of the Parliament Tower of London, they are the guards, the beefeaters. A bullet which hits a surface and glances off to another object is called a ricochet. Can you?
Chaparral, Wong.
Ricochet.
Incorrect. Can you spell ricochet, Gorman? No one wants to take a chance on it. Ricochet. If someone is compared to Rube Goldberg, what?
Chaparral, Wong.
He's an inventive type. Likes to invent things or think of new fantastic ideas.
Thank you. You have finally hit on it. Made crazy, fantastic inventions or contraptions designed generally for a useless purpose, but that is who we're comparing it to. In 1773, a group of American colonists dumped shiploads of tea into Boston Harbor.
Gorman, Miller.
Liberty.
That is correct. What did this group call themselves protesting the Tea Act? The Sons of Liberty is the right answer. What do we call the reference line on the Earth's surface, which is 90 degrees?
Chaparral, Locicero.
The horizon line.
Incorrect. Gorman, which is 90 degrees from both the North and the South Pole.
Gorman, Anders.
The equator.
That's correct, the equator. The opening lines of a famous poem are, "Listen, my children, and you shall hear."
Chaparral, Wolf.
The Ride of Paul Revere.
Incorrect. Of the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, my question is, who is the author of that poem, Gorman? No answer. That is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And the official title of that poem is Paul Revere's Ride. The Aegean Sea is an arm of what larger body of water?
Chaparral, Locicero.
The Mediterranean Sea.
That's correct, Mediterranean. Let's see. Hecate was not a popular Greek goddess. Why wasn't she popular? Hecate. No answer. Among other reasons, she was the goddess of the underworld and witchcraft. If you were learning first aid, one of your lessons would be about hemostasis. What would you be learning about?
Chaparral, Wolf.
Bleeding.
Bleeding, that's right, and generally how to stop it, I would assume. Who was the first emperor of the Holy Roman Empire who was a Christian?
Chaparral, Wong.
Not Charlemagne.
Gorman, Pierce.
No answer. That was Constantine I, 306 to 337 AD. If you belonged to a club organized to study xerophytes, what would your major interest be? No answer. That would be desert plants or plants like cactus that grow with limited water supply, so forth. How many meters will we find in a kilometer?
Gorman, Anders.
1,000.
1,000 is right. At what joint in your body do your humerus,
Chaparral, Wolf.
Elbow.
that's correct. Do your humerus and your radius come together, and that is the elbow? A team question for Chaparral. James is the most common first name among presidents of the United States. Name 5 presidents of the United States whose given name was James. Conference time is up. Mitch Wolf will answer for the team. Name 5 presidents of the U.S. whose first name was James.
Madison,
Correct?
Monroe,
Correct?
Garfield,
Correct?
Carter,
Correct, and one more.
Polk.
Polk. And a 6th one would have been James Buchanan. You have 5 parts right for 10 points on the team question. In baseball, a runner is allowed to advance 1 base if the pitcher commits an illegal act.
Gorman, Anders.
Balk.
A balk. When 1 or more runners are on base, what do we call this illegal act by the pitcher? And that is a balk. We now have a team question for Gorman. I'm going to give you the names of leaders of 5 foreign countries. Tell me the country each is identified with. Number 1, Harold Wilson. Number 2, Luis Alvarez. Number 3, King Hussein. Number 4, Park Chung-hee. And number 5, Joseph Tito. You have 10 seconds. And our conference time is up. Ed Anders is the team captain for Gorman. With what country do I identify Harold Wilson?
Netherlands.
No, with Great Britain. Number 2, Luis Alvarez.
Spain.
No, with Mexico. Number 3, King Hussein.
France.
No, with Jordan. Number 4, Park Chung-hee.
China.
No, with Korea. And number 5, Tito.
Japan.
No, with Yugoslavia. There are no points on your team question. And the whistle indicates the end of our first half. We'll be back after this. And our score at the end of the first half, we have Chaparral leading Gorman 82-35. The coaches are with me. I'd like you to meet them as we do each halftime. And from Chaparral, we have Bob Locatelli. Welcome to the game, Bob. And from Gorman, Mike Connolly, his first year as a coach, and we wish both of you good luck in the second half and for the remainder of the season. We have some substitutes, I believe, on our teams. Let's check, first of all, with Chaparral.
Jeff Morris, sophomore.
Renee Cohn, senior.
Okay, thank you, players. Welcome to the game. And we have new players on Gorman's team. Yes, we have a new player.
David Anders, sophomore.
Okay, David, thank you, and welcome to the game. Dave Bronder, are you new to the game also? All right. Excuse me, and thank you. And Rhonda Poliano has returned to the game. Our score is 82-35. At the school this past week, we had an in-school game, and El Dorado beat Indian Springs. Actually, it was a couple of weeks ago. El Dorado beat Indian Springs 123-109 in a very close game. El Dorado pulling out the victory only in the final quarter. 82-35, our score right now. Let's get to our third quarter of action. In an octave, there are 8 notes of a musical scale. How much higher is the vibration rate of the last note than the first note?
Gorman, Pierce.
13 steps.
No. Chaparral? No, I'm sorry. Chaparral? No answer. I'm sorry, no answer. It was twice as high. The vibration rate is twice as high as the first note. By what name do we call a substance which, in its pure form, cannot be separated into simpler...
Gorman, Quagliana.
No answer.
No answer, I'm sorry. It cannot be separated into simpler substances.
Chaparral, Wolf.
Homogeneous.
No, an element. An element is something that cannot be separated down to a simpler substance. During the summer of 1975, what well-known American had his household trash picked up and searched by a newspaper before the authorized trash and garbage collectors got it?
Gorman, Bronder.
Be the President of the United States.
No, not the President. Chaparral? No answer. That was Henry Kissinger. The National Enquirer claimed it found hundreds of important documents in Kissinger's trash. Why couldn't a triangle have for its three angles 60 degrees, 70 degrees?
Chaparral, Wolf.
They add up to more than 180.
That's correct, and the sum of the three angles has to be 180 or less. 60, 70, and 80 degrees were our 3 degrees we were going to give. How can you make an electromagnet out of a coil of wire?
Chaparral, Wong.
You can wrap the coil of wire around a magnet and pass current through.
That is correct. By passing the current through the coil of wire makes it an electromagnet. One of the earliest space travel ideas to appear in a story appeared in 1865 when a French author wrote, "From Earth..."
Gorman, Pierce. Jules Verne.
That's correct. "From Earth to the Moon," a classic space travel novel. Who was the author? And Jules Verne is correct. Which nation bordering China extends the farthest south?
Chaparral, Wolf.
Vietnam.
Not Vietnam.
Gorman, Pierce.
Say again.
Korea.
No, India. Over on the other side of Korea, India. What do the Siberian tiger, the whooping crane, and the devil's hole...
Chaparral, Wong.
They're endangered.
Yes, they're endangered species. The devil's hole pupfish, they all have this in common. They're in danger of becoming extinct. We've all read about Poor Richard's Almanac created by...
Chaparral, Wong.
Ben Franklin.
Not our question, not asking for that. It was created by Benjamin Franklin. Can you tell me what Richard's family name was of Poor Richard's Almanac? Gorman? No answer. That was Richard Saunders. That was the name that Franklin had created. Can you identify the well-known American poetess who wrote these lines? "Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped..."
Chaparral, Wong.
Emily Dickinson.
That's correct. "He kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality." Although the Empire State Building was famous as the world's highest building for many years, another...
Chaparral, Wong.
World Trade Towers.
That is correct. Another building in New York is now higher, and that is the World Trade Towers or World Trade Center. I have a team question for Chaparral. What does each of these instruments measure? Number 1, a hygrometer. Number 2, barometer. Number 3, hydrometer. Number 4, pyrometer. And number 5, odometer. And our conference time is up. What does each of these instruments measure? And number 1, hygrometer.
Humidity.
Correct. Humidity or moisture in the air. Number 2, barometer.
Air pressure.
Correct. Atmospheric pressure. Number 3, hydrometer.
Water pressure.
Incorrect. It would be specific gravity or strength of solutions as salt solutions. Number 4, pyrometer.
Fire.
It says fire. Incorrect. Temperatures beyond the range of a mercury thermometer. Number 5, odometer.
Mileage.
Yes, or distance traveled, we'll accept. That is 3 parts right for 6 points on the team question. Back to the quick question. Smokey the Bear is our government's cartoon symbol of forest fire prevention. What character is the anti...
Chaparral, Wong.
Mr. Litterbug.
No answer. That is a wrong answer, rather. What character is the anti-pollution symbol, Gorman?
Gorman, Bronder.
Hootie the Owl.
Yeah, we can't accept, I'm sorry. It's Woodsy Owl, in which he says, "Give a hoot, don't pollute." And we have a whistle that has rescued us here. At the end of the 3rd quarter, we'll be back with the 4th after this. Our score after 3 quarters of play, 113-40, Chaparral leading. We have 2 new players on Chaparral's team. Let's meet those 2 players now.
Craig Lewis, sophomore.
John Wong, Jr.
Thank you, players, and welcome to the game. 113-40, let's do our final quarter of play. Diana Nyad, a New York woman, accomplished...
Chaparral, Wong.
Swimming from Cuba to Florida.
Incorrect. A New York woman accomplished something in August of 1979 that no person had ever done before. What did Diana do?
Gorman, Bronder.
She swam from the tip of Florida to the Bahamas.
That is correct, or from the Bahama Islands to Florida, but those are the 2 points, and first one to do that. One of America's most famous celebrations is the Mardi Gras. In which city?
Gorman, Bronder.
New Orleans.
That's correct. In which city is the Mardi Gras held? New Orleans. How would you compute the perimeter of a polygon?
Chaparral, Wolf.
Add up the lengths of its sides.
That's correct. The country now known as Vietnam is part of a large peninsula once known by what name?
Chaparral, Lewis. North Vietnam.
No. Gorman?
Gorman, Bronder.
Malaysia Peninsula.
No. Indochina. What kind of business were Wilbur and Orville Wright engaged in?
Gorman, Bronder.
They were printers.
Not printers. Before they started experimenting with the airplane.
Chaparral, June Wong.
They're in bicycles.
Yes, they were bicycle repair and selling on a bike shop. If you were golfing and agreed to meet a friend at the 19th hole, where would you be meeting?
Gorman, Bronder.
That'd be the clubhouse.
Yes, in the clubhouse or at the bar, wherever. If you owned a golden retriever, what kind of work would you...
Chaparral, Wolf.
Golden Retriever's a dog. You'd be
Incorrect. If you owned a golden retriever, what kind of work would you train it to do? Gorman.
Gorman, Miller.
Like to get the prey when you hunt.
Yes, that's correct. Retrieving fowl, getting the prey when you were hunting. In 1963, an island which never existed before was raised up from the seafloor by a volcano. This island appeared 20 miles south of which country?
Gorman, Bronder.
United States.
Not the United States, no. Chaparral?
Chaparral, June Wong.
Iceland?
Yes, south of Iceland. The island that was created was named Surtsey, S-U-R-T-S-E-Y. In October, Willie Mays of baseball fame was told.
Gorman, Bronder.
He is associated with the Valley Industries, which is associated with gambling in Atlantic City.
That's correct. The answer to our question. The question was told to disassociate himself from baseball by Commissioner Bowie Kuhn. What was Kuhn's reason for such a demand? His connections with gambling. What is the name of the Japanese art of folding paper into decorative objects?
Chaparral, Wolf.
origami.
That's correct, origami. In Greek mythology, exactly what was the golden fleece sought by Jason?
Chaparral, June Wong.
It was the wool of the ram that carried two children across the
That's
Hellespont.
sufficient. The wool from the ram, Chrysomelas was the name of the ram, the golden wool. In the 1800s, what did the phrase Pike's Peak or bust signify?
Gorman, Bronder.
Settlers coming out from the Midwest or East would use that slogan in order to signify that they were going west and they would stop at nothing.
All right, we'll accept that. Generally, they were going for the gold, but it certainly was the immigrants heading to that part of the country. Team question for Gorman. Name the works of English literature where you would meet these characters. Number 1, the wife of Bath. Number 2, Banquo. Number 3, Mrs. Hardcastle. Number 4, Faithful. And number 5, Bob Cratchit. And our conference time is up. Dave Bronder will answer for the team. In what work of English literature will we meet the wife of Bath?
Canterbury Tales.
Correct. Number 2, Banquo.
Beth.
Correct. Number 3, Mrs. Hardcastle.
She stoops to consequence.
Correct. Number 4, Faithful.
No answer.
Pilgrim's Progress on that one. And number 5, Bob Cratchit.
Christmas Carol.
You've got it. That's 8 points for 4 parts correct on your team question. Murder in the White House is a Book of the Month Club novel written by a former president's daughter. Who is the daughter?
Chaparral, Wolf.
Susan Ford.
Not Susan Ford. Who is the daughter who wrote Murder in the White House? Gorman?
Gorman, Bronder.
Julia Eisenhower.
No. Go back further. Margaret Truman. After the Civil War, a certain type of Northerner was called a carpetbagger by Southerners.
Gorman, Bronder.
That would be one who was for the Southerner before the South lost the war, and after the North won, they transferred back over.
No, not correct. Why was the name carpetbaggers used for these Northerners?
Chaparral, June Wong.
Yeah, it was the type of bag that they carried, so they associated them with that kind of bag.
That's correct. It was the kind of traveling bag that was made out of carpet in those days. And the whistle means the end of our game. Final score, Chaparral over Gorman, 143-78. Our congratulations to Chaparral on their victory. They are 4-0 on the season. Thanks to the people that make Varsity Quiz possible this year: Bruce Miller, Director of Student Activities; Harvey Dondero, our judge; Ed Phillips, our coordinator, timekeeper, and scorekeeper. Special thanks to Robert Burchick and Don Mose, who assisted with the player identification today. Next week, it's Indian Springs in Las Vegas in our first show of 1980. Hope you'll join us. Until then, I'm Bob Amblad. Happy New Year to all of you, and may 1980 be very successful. High School Varsity Quiz is a public affairs presentation of KVBC TV3 in cooperation with the Clark County School District. Join us